game in offense. They still won the Super Bowl. And the Jaguars know, just like everybody else knows, they know what the formula is to beat this New England team. But what it comes down to is, do you have the personnel to do it? And Coughlin, who is, the GM there at Jacksonville running things, he's the only guy to ever beat Belichick in a Super Bowl. He did it twice. It's going to be an interesting game. I'm surprised that the line is still, last time I checked, the Patriots are still favored by 8. It did drop after that talk got out of Brady's hand. It did drop some, but I think this is going to be a very good game, a tight game. I don't think that the Patriots are just going to pull away here. I still like the Patriots to win because at the start of the season, I picked them to win the Super Bowl, go back-to-back. But that hand is an interesting angle. How bad is that hand? Can he make the throws that he needs to make? And again, that's not an offense that requires 30, 40-yard passes. That's not that type of offense, and that's why I believe he's going to be okay as long as he doesn't take a hit to the hand. And that's going to be the thing to watch. Because obviously we all know the Jaguars are going to be going for that. And that would be my concern if I'm with New England. My concern is not if Brady can make those throws. They'll be able to tell that today and early morning tomorrow when he does his little walkthrough in his full practices. They'll be able to tell that. My main concern would be, what if he takes a hit to that hand? What if a guy's helmet hits that hand? Then where are we going to be? That would be my real concern there. Well, the Jets part ways with offensive coordinator Norton after one season, and the Steelers part ways with Todd Haley as their offensive coordinator. A lot of issues there. You've got Le'Veon Bell, who pretty much didn't participate in the whole walkthrough prior to the game against Jacksonville. He was only there for the last 5 minutes. That's a team, I said this on the other show when they lost to Jacksonville, that's a team that has institutional control issues. You had Big Ben and some other players pointing the fingers at the staff and at Todd Haley. And Todd Haley has been removed. And some people believe that that was their goal. But you look at New England, you don't have issues like that. You don't have players crying about contracts or pointing the fingers at the coaching staff. That's what the Steelers have been. They lack institutional control. And you wonder, where could that team be if they had like a Belichick or Coughlin? Look at what Coughlin's done since he's gotten to Jacksonville. Those are pretty much the same players. Except Jalen Ramsey out of Florida State and Leonard Fournette out of LSU. Those are practically the same players that were there last year. And they're playing for the AFC title game. And I'm not saying that Coughlin is the sole reason for that, but we know how Coughlin runs things. He changes the culture and the institutional control of the team. And look at where Jacksonville is now. That is what the Steelers need. They need that institutional control. They need that culture. They don't have that. And you've got players constantly speaking out, constantly riffing about contracts. You got players prior to the Jacksonville game that were pretty much not even acknowledging Jacksonville. They were just thinking of, we're going to go to New England and we're going to win that game. And I said this back when it happened. That loss to New England in Pittsburgh, it carried with them. It carried with them. They did not let that go. Unlike New England, who can get blown out and the next game can blow the other team out, they move on very quickly. And that's because of the culture there and the institutional control that they have. But when you're going into a playoff game and you have your star running back talking about, if this team franchise tags me next season, I'm not going to be here, I'm going to leave. And then you have a quarterback and a receiver that are pointing fingers at the staff and bad calls and decisions that were made. And then you have players that aren't even talking about the Jaguars. They're looking ahead of going into New England. That's a bad culture there. That's a poor culture and a lack of institutional control. And that's something that has plagued Pittsburgh for a while now, and it continues. Look at the talent there. You got a Hall of Fame quarterback, a future Hall of Fame quarterback in Roethlisberger. You got more than likely two other future Hall of Famers in Antonio Brown and Le'Veon Bell. And you've got nothing to show for it. Yes, Big Ben has 2 Super Bowls, but that's, that was a while ago, and one of those was with Bill Cowher. And that's, another thing to look at. Look at how that team was ran when Bill Cowher was there. And you got to ask yourself the question, I do believe that, Tomlin, he is a great head coach. He's done a great job, but you look at the culture and the control part. That's something that he has lacked. And that's something that has hurt that team. With all that talent, that culture and that lack of institutional control has plagued and hurt that team extremely. And it's carried. And like I said, they can't, I still believe that loss to New England in Pittsburgh, it affected them and it carried with them. And at times it showed in that Jacksonville game. And I do think there were too many Steeler players that were looking ahead. They weren't even paying attention or acknowledging Jacksonville. They were just looking ahead. And we all saw how that paid out. But I asked this question, the week after that loss that Pittsburgh had to Jacksonville. If this happens again to Mike Tomlin and the Steelers, let's say next year they go 13-3, but they lose early in the playoffs again. They don't get to the Super Bowl. You already have some part owners of the Steelers wanting Tomlin out. If we have the same movie, the same book being played again next season, you got to start thinking, are the Rooneys on the edge there? Are they saying we need to make a change here? We're not going to go any farther than this. Well, the NFL has said that the Raiders did comply with the Rooney Rule. I'm not going to get into this. I think we all can make the full assumption that they were zeroing in on John Gruden even before they fired Jack Del Rio. And they wanted to line up and get him well before all of that occurred. And it's unfortunate, but the Rooney Rule, the past couple of times we've seen it, has been taken as a joke. And this is a prime example of it. Because I think we all can clearly tell the Raiders did not comply with the Rooney Rule in how they acquired and hired John Gruden. Because we know from sources that they lined up and they planned this even before they let Jack Del Rio go. I personally believe that the Raiders started to do this once they knew we're not going to get into the playoffs. This season is lost. I think around that time they started to pursue the Gruden option. Well, Jarvis Landry's agent, wide receiver for the Dolphins, has made it clear that the player will try to secure max compensation from the Dolphins. I have no issue with that. Get paid. Coaches do everything that they can to get paid and get the most money they can. I don't know why we knock players for it. Jarvis Landry, you've seen what he's done there in Miami at the receiver position. Go get that money and get as much as you can. I don't have a problem with that at all. Well, Ariza and Green have been suspended 2 games for entering the Clippers locker room. After the win against the Timberwolves. The Cavs, they bounced back against the Magic, got the 104-103 win, even though they blew a lead there. 76ers beat Celtics without Kyrie Irving. That whole Rockets-Clippers thing, that was odd. That was just odd. And you have Chris Paul, who is now the Rockets, and some other players that are disappointed that none of the Clippers were disciplined. Well, anytime you enter the other team's locker room, those are the guys that are going to get suspended. And I think the NBA looked at this, and we don't know the whole story. We've gotten 2 different stories. One of them says that they entered the locker room. The other one says that they were out in the hallway and that a little scuffle broke out. Apparently there was enough there that the NBA felt to suspend Ariza and Green 2 games. And it might not have just been because of the quote-unquote scuffle, but because they entered the other team's locker room. Anytime that happens, the NBA is going to step in. And the Cavs, even though they got the win the other night against the Magic, they almost blew that lead. They almost lost that game. And that's a team that they're lost right now. There's a lot of talent there, but chemistry-wise, they're just not clicking. I think they're trying too hard to get Isaiah Thomas going. And who knows, we've had this story before, and they ended up being all right and got to the finals. But if we're looking at this team as they're going to go against the Warriors in the finals yet again, right now, the way that they're playing, I don't think they can win the East. Because I think at this moment, the Celtics are better at this moment. Obviously, we'll have to see how all that plays out. AFC and NFC games this weekend, I already told you, I'm taking the Pats because I picked them at the start of this season to win it all. Vikings and Eagles at 6:40 p.m. Sunday on Fox. Both of these games are Sunday. Jags and Pats, 3:05 on CBS. Vikings are favored by 3. I think a lot of people, even though this is a Vikings team that's been tremendous all season, it's like they haven't gotten the real credit. And people are just waiting for Case Keenum to make that disastrous mistake. They're just waiting for that team to have that bad game. I like the Eagles here. I'm taking the Eagles to win this game. I think it's going to be a Pat Eagles Super Bowl. And you're going to have Nick Foles playing in the Super Bowl. I like the Vikings. I like that defense. I think Case Keenum does a lot of things extremely well. But Philly is a tough environment to play. That's a tough field to play on. The Vikings are primarily a dome team. Even though I think that Vikings defense is better than Philly's, I think Philly's defense is going to be better on Sunday. And that's going to be the difference of that game. That does it for the show today, folks. Hope that all of you enjoyed it. We'll see you all here Monday for Sports Talk Speaker Radio, for iHeartRadio.com, for YouTube.com. I'm Hardy. This is The Hardy Show. Have a great weekend.